What is the point of creating a holiday special? I think, at its best, a holiday special serves as a way to make your particular show a part of someone's yearly holiday tradition. But in order to do that, you have to tell a meaningful holiday story. Let's take a look at all four, yes there are four, SpongeBob holiday specials and ask ourselves how many of them actually succeed as holiday specials. Chapter 1. Christmas Who. Christmas Who, like many SpongeBob specials, opens on a Patchy segment. This was actually the first time Patchy the Pirate ever appeared in the series, because this was the very first double-length special the show ever produced. Patchy himself doesn't have anything to do with the actual story of the special, nor do his segments constitute a B story of their own like some other Patchy segments do. But that's okay, because the purpose of this Patchy segment is to set the tone of the special and elevate its status as a holiday episode. The opening segment is Patchy at its best. It's kitschy, campy, and all around fun. But I think the most important part of the opening segment is this moment where Patchy reads a fan letter from a child asking what Christmas is like in Bikini Bottom. Now, whether or not this was a real letter from name and address withheld doesn't really matter, because by framing the entire episode around an answer to a letter, this not only makes the episode feel more personal, it also makes it feel more Christmassy, because writing letters is just inherently Christmas coded, thanks to the whole letters to Santa concept popularized by films like Miracle on 34th Street. So with the Patchy segment already putting us in a Christmassy mood, the real episode begins with SpongeBob learning what Christmas is from Sandy and sharing it with the citizens of the town. The choice to have this not only be a SpongeBob Christmas story, but a story about the first time any of these characters have ever experienced Christmas at all does a fantastic job of elevating this from your average Christmas special. It gives the entire narrative this sense of innocence, this sense of magic that could have only been communicated had they gone with the concept of Bikini Bottom's first Christmas. But it being the first Christmas not only serves to drive the magic of the plot, it also serves to drive its conflict. So I think that a Christmas story is a distinct kind of story, not just any old story that takes place around the holidays. Sorry, all you Die Hard is a Christmas movie people. It's not. It's a good movie that happens to take place on Christmas, but not a Christmas movie. A Christmas narrative is one where the ideals of the holiday are reinforced through the story. Those ideals being generosity and goodwill towards our fellow man. That is, in its purest form, what I think the holiday actually means, and why it resonates with our culture so much that we continue to celebrate it each year. Sure, it's also used to advertise products and bolster end-of-year quarterly revenue, and it's also an important part of people's faith-based traditions, which is totally great and quite positive for those who hold that sort of faith. But the idea of Christmas that resonates most with the entire population, and why I think it provides social good to celebrate it each year, is because it reminds us of the ideals of generosity and goodwill towards others. In every successful Christmas narrative, there is a character who does not hold the ideals of Christmas, and through the course of the story changes their perspective and learns to embrace those ideals. Basically, every Christmas movie has a Scrooge. The Scrooge of Christmas Who is Squidward. So Squidward's Scrooge-like tendencies are communicated through his disbelief in Santa Claus, a common and effective way to communicate a Scrooge figure's character flaw. But what does believing or disbelieving in Santa actually mean narratively? After all, in real life, if there's any kids out there watching this, I'm gonna need you to mute for the next minute or so, because what I'm gonna say is for grown-ups only. And don't forget, Santa's watching. Okay, muted me? Good. So, after all, in real life, Santa Claus doesn't really exist, so in any narrative where Santa denial is present, the lack of faith is actually a representation of their lack of reverence for the ideals of Christmas. Another interesting element of Squidward's disbelief in Santa and his lack of participation in the holiday is how it's rooted in nothing more than run-of-the-mill cynicism. We aren't giving a backstory or a deeper reason as to why Squidward is against Christmas. We can clearly see that he simply just finds the whole ordeal annoying, and sometimes that's all a Scrooge is. Someone who looks at others having fun and just kind of sticks their nose up at it, thinking they are above it all. By the way, I talked a lot about this kind of stuff in my Elf video, where I broke down how it understands Christmas spirit better than any other film. You should really check it out. Another thing Christmas Who succeeds in is a strong emotional through line. There are some distinct moments within the story that help drive the emotional core of the episode. The first moment is right here, when SpongeBob's eyes widen as Sandy teaches him about Christmas, setting the foundation that this immediately means something special to him, and thus should mean something special to the audience. The next distinct emotional moment comes when all of the townspeople are sending their letters to Santa, when SpongeBob says that his Christmas wish is this:
"All I want is for you to visit the gentle folk here in Bikini Bottom."
While this moment might not stand out as much more than SpongeBob being the clear force of good in the episode, this Christmas wish being established here only serves to escalate the emotional stakes once Santa doesn't arrive and Squidward feels responsible. Now, this Christmas wish is more than just one character being overly nice. It actually serves as the challenge for the flawed character to now have to overcome. The story isn't about SpongeBob wanting this, as he wants it by default. The story is about Squidward learning to want this. In a way, they both have the same Christmas wish, but what makes the story meaningful is how Squidward the Scrooge learns to want to have the same perspective as Christmas-loving SpongeBob. The big change in Squidward's attitude comes after Santa doesn't arrive and SpongeBob believes Christmas is ruined. Since Squidward didn't believe in Santa and didn't ask him for a gift, SpongeBob made him one, leaving him to be the only person in the entire town to actually get a gift. The writers decided that SpongeBob's gift to Squidward would be a handcrafted wooden clarinet. What made this particular object work so well as the gift is how it rides the perfect balance between just a high-value material possession and something that represents the thoughtfulness of a friend. It being homemade implies SpongeBob made it himself, and it being a clarinet shows SpongeBob's thoughtfulness and understanding of his friend's personal interests. In having this be the gift, it communicates to the audience that when Squidward changes his attitude, he does so because of the kindness that the gift represents, not because it was something he wanted. Then, to try and make things right, Squidward pretends to be Santa, which gets out of hand when the entire town shows up expecting gifts, leading Squidward to have to sacrifice all of his material possessions in order to keep the ruse alive, proving to the audience that he has overcome his initial negative perspective. I also would like to acknowledge the role of the townspeople in this special and how they enhance the episode. Something special about the SpongeBob background fish compared to other shows is just how well they reflect real people. Finicky, entitled, a little unhinged, but still deep down good. The townspeople have a major presence throughout the episode. Their acceptance, rejection, and subsequent re-acceptance of Christmas through the actions of SpongeBob and Squidward are the stakes of the episode. And like most SpongeBob episodes, it doesn't shy away from portraying the flaws of humanity through the background characters. They're entitled with all the stuff they ask for. They're rude to SpongeBob when they don't get what they want. And in a lot of ways, one could argue that they don't actually deserve the sacrifices that Squidward is making for them. But with that in mind, are the background fish really so different from humanity? It's all the more meaningful that SpongeBob and Squidward would see these people as worth giving a good holiday to. The ending then has the real Santa personally thank Squidward, further punctuating his change and providing supernatural approval to his actions. Of course, even when presented with this physical evidence, Squidward is still skeptical of the existence of Santa Claus, writing off the encounter as him just being insane. But it doesn't matter if Squidward actually believes in the physical Santa. What matters is that he embraced the ideals of the holiday, which was the lesson of the episode. Chapter 2. It's a SpongeBob Christmas. So, sometime later, SpongeBob made another Christmas special called It's a SpongeBob Christmas. The most striking difference between this special and the first special is its stop-motion art style, reminiscent of the Rankin Bass specials. There really is something about stop-motion that captures the nostalgic Christmas feeling. I used to think that this perception was nothing more than simple pattern recognition due to so many specials utilizing the art style, but in thinking deeper, I really do think that there was something about the suspension of disbelief that stop motion uniquely communicates that just screams Christmas, probably because they feel almost like Christmas decorations coming to life. Like Christmas Who, It's a SpongeBob Christmas is framed through a patchy segment, but unlike Christmas Who, the patchy segment is also made through stop-motion animation. It's a pretty direct parallel to the mailman who frames the story in Santa Claus is Coming to Town. While it's certainly not a bad framing device, it sets up the special well and has a few funny bits about Patchy stealing a mail truck, it does lack the factor that the Christmas Who Patchy segment has, and starts the special off on a bit of a weaker foot. It's a SpongeBob Christmas is a Plankton formula story, where Plankton makes everyone else in the town jerks by feeding them all fruitcake with jerktonium so that he would look good in comparison. Okay, so this was probably unintentional, but I love the implication that Santa's naughty and nice list is like relative. Like, you can get on the nice list because other people are bad. I find that really funny. Like, what even is good? It is good, just less bad. It's so deeply philosophical. Anyway, Ethics 101 aside, I do take a little bit of issue with this plot because by having the citizens of Bikini Bottom eat the jerktonium and having that be the thing that makes them jerks, it removes any autonomy from their actions. So remember what I said earlier about how every Christmas story has a Scrooge? In this story, the townspeople are kinda all the Scrooge, and no, Plankton isn't the Scrooge. He's just a regular, pure evil villain. You can't be a Scrooge unless you change your ways at the end, which Plankton doesn't. So what makes a Scrooge figure so meaningful in these stories is that both their cynicism at the beginning and their newfound positive attitude at the end are all a result of their own choices. Squidward in Christmas Who is at first cynical about Santa Claus, but in seeing SpongeBob's sadness towards the holiday seemingly failing and the goodwill that's communicated through SpongeBob's gift to him, he willingly changes his ways and even sacrifices his own material possessions in order to make things right. He wasn't a jerk because he was being mind controlled, he just was a jerk. Or as he put it,
I feel like a big jerk.
Oh wait, he called himself a jerk too. Now, this doesn't mean that the idea of jerktonium-infused fruitcakes was one that should have been left on the cutting room floor. It's not a bad idea, as it does tie together the themes of the episode within this easily recognizable Christmas-themed object. The idea just wasn't presented properly. What the story needed was a non-science fiction reason that the townspeople might have become jerks anyway, so that the fruitcake didn't make them jerks. It's just the thing that brings out the jerkiness that was already inside them. The episode should have called back to Christmas Who and mentioned how they've only experienced a handful of Christmases since SpongeBob and Sandy introduced the concept to them. The conflict could have revolved around the holiday starting to lose its magic, and the townspeople not being as participatory as years past. This would have been incredibly relatable, especially to kids, because as we grow older and out of childhood, we start to feel differently towards Christmas, and even at times risk losing our Christmas cheer. The opening of the episode seems to show all of the townspeople on the same page and loving Christmas, but was that really an effective way to tell a more nuanced story? The townspeople don't really have much room to change if they never really held a negative perspective in the first place. Even the big song of the special, Don't Be a Jerk, It's Christmas, has all these lyrics about certain things you should not do that make you a jerk, but the townspeople didn't really do any of those things until they were mind controlled. And I get that fruitcakes simply represent the concept of people becoming jerks around the holidays and that the song represents the Christmas cheer that can undo that jerkiness, but if in your narrative all that is presented to you is the magical or science fiction thing, if it's lacking the actual human element beneath it, you end up not communicating the story as well. But even with that in mind, It's a SpongeBob Christmas is still a good special that does capture a sense of Christmas cheer and does succeed at being a Christmas story. But what about the next Christmas special? Chapter 3, SpongeBob's Road to Christmas. So, with SpongeBob's Road to Christmas, they decided to go back to traditional 2D animation. The special definitely feels less special-y than the first two. This is probably because it didn't have a Patchy-related framing device, and also because so much of the beginning takes place in a non-Christmas setting. While the very beginning of the episode takes place in a decked-out pineapple where Santa visits the SquarePants residence and misses out on taking the gift that SpongeBob intended for him, the episode then cuts to 7 months later in regular old Bikini Bottom. Look at these scenes visually. do they really scream Christmas to you? It doesn't help that the timeline of the episode just doesn't take place around Christmas at all, with the episode taking place in July. And sure, the episode is a bit self-aware of this,
It's July?
but I don't think that was worth losing so much Christmas magic from its narrative. The story wouldn't have been that different if it was like 2 weeks before Christmas or something, and then they could have had a bunch of like decorations and snow and stuff in the early scenes, and it just would have been better. So in the story, SpongeBob wants to deliver the present he intended for Santa the previous year, and he and Patrick travel with Plankton to the North Pole, with, of course, Plankton having the ulterior motive of hacking into Santa's mainframe and moving himself to the nice list so he can get the secret formula for Christmas. So this story is missing two major things. The first is SpongeBob and Patrick's role in Plankton's plan. Like, okay, I get the dynamic. Plankton is an evil genius and these two are dopes, so they wouldn't exactly be the best travel companions. This drives the comedy of the episode. But what makes it fall flat is that there isn't some kind of reason for Plankton to actually need to put up with SpongeBob and Patrick at all. What they should have done was have some kind of flashback where Plankton attempted to break into the North Pole only to find that there's some kind of like sensor that only opens the door for people on the nice list, and then he realizes he can use SpongeBob to open that door. That's all it needed, and the story would have been a lot tighter. It's not as funny when SpongeBob and Patrick are doing all these things that mess with Plankton when, like, there's no reason that Plankton is forced to be there. You know, if there's a moment where Plankton's like, oh, well, I have to put up with you guys because you're important to my plan or something, you know, that makes a huge difference. The other more important element that this story is missing is a deeper emotional through line. In the scene where SpongeBob notices the gift was left behind, he expresses how this makes him feel in regards to his own Christmas cheer. This communicated to me that SpongeBob was going to be the Scrooge of this story, that getting this present back to Santa was the thing he needed to get his Christmas spirit back. However, beyond this moment, SpongeBob is just a blank slate and loves Christmas as much as anyone else. There are no further doubts in his own Christmas spirit. There's no big trials or tribulations that challenge his beliefs. There's no major low point where he truly feels like all is lost. He just kind of slapsticks around all these different settings until Plankton gets foiled and Santa gets his present. You need more on the way to that ending. Also, I do want to address one big issue with this episode that I had, and it's the fact that so much of this episode took place above the water, yet the surface world is portrayed as animated instead of live action. They even featured Patchy the Pirate in the episode, but animated. I just felt kind of wrong, you know? Like when Patchy was stop motion animated in the other special, it didn't feel wrong because the whole special was animated differently. And Patchy was just an extension of how stop motion Christmas specials are presented. But here, it just kind of doesn't. I don't like it. Patchy's supposed to be live action. That's like what makes Patchy special, is it's his cartoon show, and then it's like, ooh, here's the live action presenter guy, and that makes it a special. Because that's supposed to be animated. SpongeBob's relationship to live action set pieces is a big part of what makes it feel so special as a cartoon. Since the ocean is a place that is so different to us, by portraying everything in the surface world as live action, we can almost believe that the world of SpongeBob could exist in our world under the waves, as opposed to most other animated shows where we just kind of have to think of it as a full-on alternate universe. Not only is this live-action animation connection important to the overall vibe of the show, it's extra important for the major specials, as most SpongeBob specials utilize live-action segments to further communicate the specialness of their special. Now, to be a little fair to this episode, it was produced in 2021, and a certain world event did prevent them from being able to film live-action segments, and that almost made me give this decision a pass until I thought about it a little more and realized how easy it would have been to just write around it. Like, Patchy didn't need to be in this special. The entire sequence doesn't mean anything to the overall story at all. They went to a place they thought was the North Pole, Patchy tells them it wasn't, and then they go to the real North Pole. It doesn't mean anything deeper to the story or themes or character arcs, so what was the point? From there, they could have easily written around having the North Pole also be animated. Since the North Pole is a magical, otherworldly place, I could buy that it is also animated in the same way I could buy the Bikini Bottom is animated. Just don't animate the normal real world, and we still get the proper illusion. Or maybe even you could have have the North Pole be stop motion like the other special. I mean, you could have just made this whole thing a stop motion special like the previous one. It would have solved a lot of these problems. So overall, SpongeBob's Road to Christmas is a bit of a mess. It doesn't feel very Christmassy, it breaks one of the most foundational rules of the SpongeBob series, and it lacks an emotional through line. But there's still one more Christmas special to discuss. Chapter 4, Sandy's Country Christmas. So with Sandy's Country Christmas, they went back to the stop-motion art style. So like SpongeBob's Road to Christmas, Sandy's Country Christmas lacks an emotional through line. It seems a little bit that Sandy has some kind of doubts around Christmas in a way that's tied to her tree-growing experiment. And there's a whole thing with the townspeople souring on Christmas after Santa bonks his head and gets all delirious, but I don't know, I don't really feel like a lot happens in this special. It's really focused on these 6 relatives of Sandy who show up at the beginning of the episode, and like, I don't know, it's just too many characters to introduce right off the bat for one special, and it doesn't really give us time to explore her direct relationship with any of her family members. She doesn't have any deep conflict with any of her family members either, so why are they even here? The most plot relevant thing any of the family members do is when the little siblings make the tree grow big that Santa crashes into, and the grandmother inspires them all to deliver the presents themselves by telling a story from her childhood where all the elves went on strike and everyone had to buy their own gifts and exchange with each other. Look, I kind of get what you're going for. I get what you're trying to say. It's not about the presents, it's about each other. But it just falls a little flat when you don't have a strong emotional through line. Chapter 5, Why Tell a Christmas Story? So, of the 4 episodes I discussed in this video, I really only envision myself revisiting Christmas Who and It's a SpongeBob Christmas consistently. I actually have watched Christmas Who every single year, probably ever since it premiered when I was a kid. It's a SpongeBob Christmas I actually watched for the first time this year, as I wasn't really into SpongeBob back when it came out, and just never got around to watching it. But honestly, while it certainly had its flaws, I think it is worth revisiting in holiday seasons moving forward. The other 2, yeah, I don't really think there's much reason for me to add these episodes to my yearly Christmas watch list. And that's really why it's such a shame that these episodes are as low quality as they are. Like I said earlier, I think that Christmas as a holiday provides social good because it is a time where we celebrate the virtues of generosity and goodwill towards one another, and Christmas-themed stories reinforce those virtues. Because it is such a special time of year, we often hold close our rituals that we engage in during the season. And one of the most important rituals to a lot of us is rewatching Christmas classics. So these latter 2 Christmas specials being subpar means so much more than the fact that they are just mediocre episodes. These episodes are a missed opportunity to be a part of the broader Christmas culture. They could have been another way to teach the important lessons of the holiday. I mean, think about how many young people viewed Christmas Who and internalized its lessons and made it a part of who they were. And think of how much more Christmas Who became a part of their lives because they re-watch it every year. I know for sure that's exactly what happened with me. And look at other Christmas classics: Elf, Rudolph, A Christmas Carol, It's a Wonderful Life. The fact that these stories are rewatched and retold yearly does more than just entertain. It allows the valuable lessons of these works to be reinforced as good and virtuous ways to live year after year. Hey, thank you so much for watching. If you want to support the channel, I have a Patreon, or you can become a channel member. I really would also recommend my Elf video. If you like that movie, you're gonna love my video on it. It's probably one of the best breakdowns of that movie on YouTube.